The Five OOOH Podcast.
Five OOOH Podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the 5-0 podcast. It's your host, Haley. And today I'm here with Kenneth Dean, aka Let's Talk Law Enforcement, period. You may recognize him from social media, but the real Kenneth is a current law enforcement officer, a pilot trainee, public speaker, internet personality, podcast host, and so much more. So for everyone listening who don't know who you are already, which I'm sure most do, give us a quick bio about yourself, and then we will peel back the layers about everything we talked about above and more.
Yeah, there's a couple layers, right? A couple layers.
There's a lot of layers. I love it.
First, thanks for having me. I appreciate you, us doing this together, because somebody actually referred me to you, another officer. He's like, check out her page, man. I'm telling you, you guys should, because she's going to see this and be like, I told you.
Was it Erica?
No, she's from DC. I won't put her name out there, but she's DC cop.
Oh, amazing. I love it.
Right. And she said, you guys should hook up because she does really good work and, you do work or whatever. So that's what I decided. So, you know what? Yeah, I to reach out. But yeah, I'm Kenny Dean. I started in law enforcement way back in, and I'm not old. I started as a baby. No, the heck, I'm okay with being old. But I started in the late 90s, 1990s, late 90s, right? In Baltimore City Academy. I got out of Baltimore City Academy, and we had this unit called housing unit. So we worked all the projects, right? And I mean, have you ever heard of the show The Wire?
No.
On HBO? Okay. Look that thing up. It'll tell you all you need to know about the conditions back there, right? But it was some of the best training I've ever had, because it put, you cut your teeth in the hood, and there's nothing better than that to me, right? So I'm in Baltimore, in the hood, in the projects. We getting TVs and stuff thrown down at us, shitty diapers, all that, right? But it was one of the best experiences because I had some of the best training officers ever, right? And they went on to become sergeants, some of them homicide detectives and all. But unfortunately, I got into a shooting in Baltimore, and I shot and killed a teenager. And he was a robbery suspect. It was all cleared and all, and you know how that goes. Yeah. But it put me through the ringer, man. It put me through the ringer because, when we out there in the street, you're like, okay, if I play by the rules, I follow the rules, everything's okay. Right? The department's going to support you. You're going to be fine. Right. You understand that, just like you just made that, they'll get you, but they're going to put you through the ringer to make sure. And then you find out that you're going to probably get sued civilly. And you're like, wait, I did everything by the book. And you're like, oh, we don't care. So you learn about that side of the department, and you learn about that side of law enforcement, which I didn't know anything about that. I'm like, yeah, I'm good, right? I did my job. Unfortunately, I had to shoot this young man, but he was robbing somebody, right? No, man, you're an admin. I learned all about that. Like, damn, admin duty, right? Oh, you got to go down to headquarters, and I learned how to be a dispatcher for a year, right? Waiting it out, right? So fast forward that, I got clear. So DC, NPD came calling. They were recruiting, and I was back on the street, and I was like, they're like, hey, don't you come on down to DC, which is like 30 miles from Baltimore. I was like, I don't know. But I was so frustrated with Baltimore. I was like, okay. I said, well, wait, I got this shooting. And I remember my background investigators like, man, we don't give a shit about that shooting. We know about that. You clear. It was a clean shooting. We good. So I went down there, lateral there, and 2002 graduated, so I'm thinking they're going to send me uptown near the White House or, Georgetown, whatever. They're like, nah, we're going to send you to this, it's called the 7th District. Basically, Southeast DC war zone, which it is. I'm like, damn, I can't get away, right?
Damn, I can't be somewhere nice. Like,
right? So I get there, I'm like, man, honestly, I was still suffering from PTSD.
yep,
But you know how we hide it?
of course.
Because you don't want to tell anybody because you're afraid that they're gonna tell somebody else, or next thing you know, your lieutenant's gonna call you and they're like, I need your badge and gun.
Yep.
And I say this as a black man, and it bothers me, but we have to, right? As a black man, a black police officer, especially at the black man part, we're taught coming up that black men are not supposed to have any kind of, and I want to say it in the right way, but we're not supposed to ask anybody for help. That's the culture, or was the culture. You hear walking off, right? Your mom, get up. Men don't cry. You know that. So as a man, definitely not. But then I added that extra layer because of my race and culture. It's like, man, I can't go to anybody for help. So every time I would go, for my first shooting and stuff, they question, hey, you suicidal, homicide? I'm like, God damn, no. Can I go now? Hey, you never sat there and talked because you didn't want to tell how you weren't sleeping at night, all that other stuff. So my defining moment was I got into another shooting in DC. Guys on PCP, we get a call, stabbing up. Yeah, so right? He decides he wants to stab up a firefighter in the hallway. We right there. Now we could do. Here we go again, right?
You're like, God damn, can I catch a break?
Right? So that was it. So I'm like, God. So, okay. I worked that out. Now I'm angry. I get the angry side of PTSD, like the really angry side. F this, F that. Fuck y'all, right? I don't care. I was angry for probably about 3 to 4 months. And then one night, and I can share this, right? One night I was in the bed, and the PTSD I woke up, but I was still in that sleep state, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which I hadn't learned. That's part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I woke up and I freaking fired around into the closet.
Wow.
That was it. That was it for me. I was like, and I will say this because, again, right, you one of the few people, but again, I'm comfortable with that because, first of all, DC can't come mess with me for that. And I guess the funniest thing, and not funny thing, but I know God was looking out for me because the apartment next door that I fired the round into was empty.
Thank God.
I didn't know it was empty though, right? So I'm sweating. Oh, and I'm like, oh my God, did I kill somebody next door? Because I kind of just moved to the place, right? I'm sitting there like, oh my God, do I knock on the door? What do I do? I'm terrified. And come to find out, I lucked up. And that's what I say. I believe in God. I don't put that on anybody else to do it. But for me, I know because you would not believe that same morning, I hear people coming up the steps. First, I'm waiting for officers to respond to the gunshots, right? Nobody showed up. Again, nobody heard. So I'm like, oh, okay. I kid you not. I'm just sitting there. I hear people coming up the steps and I'm like, oh, well, okay, your career is over. It's the freaking maintenance men. So they're going around just opening doors for the painters that are coming around, but they aren't with them. They just in advance opening doors, right? So I was like, so I opened the door after they went out and I peeped and I'm like, oh my God, it's empty. Man, listen, I ran in there, looked for the shot. I saw it up in that bathroom. I took that thing, gone, never heard a thing about it. That's why I know, like, at that point, like, I was like, nah, I still want you to do this job because there's no freaking way I could have or should have walked, honestly, not walked away like it was something criminal, but, that humbled me because I was like, oh my God, like, how does this PTSD have me? And what do I do? So finally, I was like, you know what? I gotta go and I gotta talk to somebody real.
Yeah.
That's what saved my career.
I appreciate you sharing that and like what you said about being a Black man and just being a man in general, because I feel like, and I talk about it a lot, but I feel like, you know, I talk a lot about the women's side and the underestimation and, you know, how we constantly have to prove ourselves and things like that, but we're labeled as emotional. Whereas on your side, you are labeled as like the opposite. You have to be very tough. You cannot be emotional. You cannot show fear. You cannot, you know, have PTSD. You can't talk to someone. God forbid you say you go to therapy. That's, oh, people are going to make fun of you that you work with. Like, why do you need to talk to someone, bro? Like, it's, now it's crazy, but I do hope that the culture is changing a little bit. And I think just like hearing you say that, like you hit your breaking point and you went and got help is like the realest thing, because I was just talking to someone earlier, but what makes us the best officers is the things that we have been through and the things that we have experienced. Because if we haven't been through anything in life, and this is no disrespect to anyone who's like really young on the job, but I always look at them and I'm like, have you been through like real life situations yet? Like, you know, and I started when I was 26. I had a very fast-paced life and I had been through a lot of things. But I just feel like everything that we have gone through makes us more relatable, makes us better on the job, makes us better connecting to victims, makes us better connecting to people and families, like you name it. But like, you know, obviously if you're dealing on a call with another man who's going through some sort of, you know, emotional trauma, you could be like, dude, I've been there. And like and humanize yourself, because a lot of us have been in other places that these people have been in.
That's why I did faith. That's why I started faith. That's what I mean. That's what kind of like the origin of it, where it started as kind of like, hey, you know, the training aspect, and the media, and I say this, and you know this, the media really never shows the whole thing, right? Of course not. We know that. Yeah, a lot of citizens don't know that, right? They just go off of, well, CNN said it was a mostly peaceful protest. So CNN said he was unarmed. You know what I mean? CNN said he was unarmed Black man. No. And a lot of people just follow that. And I, like I said, I call it programming. So that's where I got the idea of like, let me, you know, kind of start. And it just blew up. It took off.
Well, I'm going to ask you all that. I want to get into that. But I want to start with something that I ask everybody, because I like to know where everyone's like roots are from and where you came from. Tell us about your family life and growing up, and then how you ended up becoming a cop.
Well, went in the military at 17. Mom had to sign. Okay. She was like, you know, one of them things where like, you really want to go? It's like, hey, we in Baltimore here. I said, you can go see you. So I went, came back, and I lived in a really mixed middle-class neighborhood in Baltimore, right on the line, Baltimore County. So a lot of my friends were white, Jewish, Black. So for us in that neighborhood, and I know people don't believe this, and I'm sure there was racism hidden or whatever, but it was just, we didn't have that. We just kind of
that's good that you experienced that. Yeah.
We didn't want, like, the Jewish family went like, hey, you Black, you can't hang out. I didn't even know they were Jewish till they would go, you know, to certain services. So it was like, my best friend's white. He's still like, I was walking in and out of his front door, and they were walking, like, it wasn't, you know, it was so cool. And to see how it is now is, to me, is horrible, because I just think we dwell on that instead of just, it's gotten worse to me. And not worse as the racism, but just we're promoting that division so much instead of saying, no, man, like I grew up with this dude. Just because he's white doesn't mean he's racist. Or I'm black doesn't mean I hate white people or Hispanic people. So with that being said, my mom she wasn't really strict, but she was like, you want certain things, you have to earn them. My grandparents were the same way. That's who got me into flying, right? My grandpa, right?
That's awesome.
His best friend, white guy up in a place called Westminster, Maryland. So we used to fly. Like I'm flying at like 8 years old in a plane with them, not knowing they, probably had a day or two. Right? I'm lucky to be alive. Now I think about it, but they were cool friends, and it was like I had to look at it like I'm like 8 years old in this plane, in this Cessna plane in the back. What other kid in Baltimore City is doing this right now? But you don't think about that until years, down the road.
Right.
So she just wanted, I want to say the best for me. Me and her get along great now. And we always have, but she's been my mom. She's at 3:00 in the morning. You need to get up and clean the bathroom. She was one of those, right? You need to go rake the leaves. You need to do that. But I appreciate that work ethic now because that's how I got it, right?
Right.
So while I became a cop, it was funny. One day, me and my friend hanging out on the block, and somebody called the police about kids in the neighborhood. The police never came down our street because they had no reason to. So the white cop was cool with us, but he treated him like he was this straight, and I'm like, well, wait a minute, he's white, but I'm in my mind, I'm trying to figure this out. So later, it was kind of like revealed to me that my friend was considered what they call back then, I mean, still call it now, lower middle class white folk, right? They had this name, they called it white trash. I didn't know anything about that. I'm sitting there like, this is my friend, right? I'm like, that's my friend, right? So it was explained to me, and to me, that was my trigger right there. I was like, you know what? If I ever do this job, I'm not going to treat people like that. And that was my trigger. That's how I started. So I decided to take the test. And like I said, it was funny because I was drinking the night before the test. And I was like, I'm not going to do this, right? One of those moments, like, I ain't going to do it. I woke up at 7:00 with a hangover. I drove to the college to take the test, right? It's full. Auditorium is full. That's why I said, I know for whatever reason, God's looking out for me. So I'm ready to go. And I'm like, man, I'm here now. I take the written test. Out of 1,300 people, I was one of the 13 that they hired out of that testing.
Oh my God.
I was one of the 13 that they hired out of that testing group that day.
Back when everyone wanted to be a cop.
Yes, right. So that's why I was like, man, this is my calling. Because when the major told me later, he's like, yeah, out of that group, he's like, we tested 1,300. Like, yeah, we hired 13 of y'all.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
I went, wow. So yeah, that's how I got into it, and I'm pretty nice middle class upbringing, and
it's cool to know how everyone grows up because I feel like all of our upbringings are so different, and it's some people have like these chaotic upbringings, and that's why they want to be a cop, and some people like me and you have totally pretty normal upbringing, But so you become
I got to my fight and all. I was a boy, chasing girls, doing boy stuff, but we didn't do stuff that they're doing now. We didn't like, hey, we're going to carjack somebody or rob somewhere. We're like, hey, we're going to see this girl. We want to go see her. That was our
normal stuff.
Right.
What kids should be doing instead of what they're doing. So you became a cop. You become one of these 13 people. You get on this job and you're probably like, holy shit. What units I know you've done a lot of units. So what units have you worked in, and what was your favorite?
Yeah, I did. Back then, I did the tactical unit. That was guns and drugs in the projects. That was cool. That was earn my way to plain clothes. That was cool because you could, I ain't gonna say still be a cop, because you can be a cop, but we didn't.
I know.
We didn't violate rights. We just went out there and got guns, and it was a cat and mouse game. So the bad guys knew if they got caught, they got caught. It wasn't. I won't say nobody got hurt, but it was kind of respect among thieves, if you know what I'm saying. Where
Yes.
we would talk to these guys. And
Right. And you probably knew everyone by name.
everybody.
You knew who they were. You knew who their parents were.
Yes, that was huge too, right?
Yeah.
So I think the best unit I was in, we had an active shooter squad in DC when I got there. So I love the rifle training and I love the active shooter training. So that came in handy, on a few scenes where we had active shooters and stuff like that. But what's funny is we had a huge one in the Navy Yard. I think it was 2013. Navy Yard in DC. It was 13 people shot and killed. That's one that's almost, you have to look at it because it's almost like, I wasn't an active shooter, but it was only, and I'll say it's in a disrespectful way, but to the people, it was only 13 people killed as opposed to the multiple active shooters we have now, right? But that situation was an eye opener because we started going to the earpieces where everybody wearing the earpieces now.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the reason, because the shooter could hear the radio.
Wow. Interesting.
And you'll see a lot of officers now with just the earpiece or whatever, but that was our reason for going to the earpieces, because the shooter could hear all the radios going off. Navy Yard in DC is huge.
Yeah.
So that was a wild scene that day. And I did crime scene. Crime scene was fun. I went to school for that. That was fun.
That's cool.
But I'm gonna tell you the best unit I've been in and still do to this day. I love being an FTO.
Oh, I could see you being such a fun FTO. Oh my God. Stories and fun and
right. Yeah, look at that. Like if you ever get a chance, I posted a lot of FTO stuff from DC. And I had so much fun with it because I made it so say, hey, listen, we get in the car. I wasn't one because I remember my horrible FTO from DC. I had a horrible one. I had a great one in Baltimore, but one from DC. I was like, really? This? But anyway, so I vowed once I went to school for that, we got trained in that, boom. So I let them know, listen, we're going to have fun in this car. So
I love it.
It's okay if you like, hey, I need to call my husband, I need to call my boyfriend, because this film, they went out the academy, you petrified because you have no idea who you're going to get. You have no idea what your first day is going to be like.
And the academy does not prepare you for the street
at all.
I mean, there's zero similarities about being on the street and being in the academy. I mean,
it just gets you through, and rightfully so. But it was, for me, one of the best things I've been able to do. And every FTO I had, we always did videos with it. And it got to the point where it was crazy. I was getting requested from classes that were in the academy.
I love it. Yes, I love it.
And I'm like, that's not up to me. But it was like my commander, she didn't have a problem with it because she was like, you guys are having fun. So we got away from that. Oh my God, you guys can't video yourselves. You can't do this. Because for whatever reason, there's this stigma that was going around, and it was like, you can't video yourselves while you're working, because I'm like, Mom, that body cams on that are public information. Right? If any citizen wants to go, hey, I want to see that, they can. Now, for me, it was like I videotaped them in their best moments, and like driving, we go on the calls, and I'm just like, hey, you're going too slow, you're going too fast. And we would have fun. So to me, it put a lot of them at ease to the point where they were like, man, I will always remember you as my FTO. And that's where you want to get to. You know what I mean? So I had
Yeah.
dozens, dozens of trainees, and now they hit me up and they say the same thing. It's like, man, I remember, my first day or my first, what respect, like my first shooting or my first homicide.
Yep.
That first unconscious person where you're like, get in there, you gotta handle it, right? It's 80 degrees. That body been in there for 6 months. Come on, like you got to get in there, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so
I love that. I love that I've had really great FTOs also, and I've had some, bad, but the ones that were fun and made me feel comfortable and treated me like a human being and not like some kid were always my favorite. And if you feel comfortable and you feel relaxed, you're so much more prone to ask questions when you need help. If you're so nervous all the time about like doing everything right, you're going to fuck up. Like, like because you're so in your own head. But if you have like an FTO where you feel like, hey, I don't know what the fuck to do at this part, and they're helpful, like that's the only way you're going to learn. No one knows, I'm almost 7 years in. I forget how many years do you have now? 21?
I'm working on my actually it's 26 total.
26 years. And I would say that every day we're still learning. Like you still
absolutely.
Oh, you're not supposed to know it all, and especially when you're on FTO.
Yeah, I learned from them. I still learn from them. Even even I switched from Maryland department, the last training I had, because sometimes things pass you by, especially electronics and all. You know what I'm getting at? So
yeah,
it was like click. I'm like, hey, show me how to do that again. See, I'm not above that. Show me how to do that again.
Yes.
Okay, so quick a way to do. Listen, you're gonna laugh. I didn't learn how to copy and paste until 2015.
Stop.
Listen, you can laugh because we didn't learn.
True though. I mean,
we would learn. I mean, we had computers at the go, but we were taught because we handwrote reports a lot, right? So we, oh no, click, do it again, right? So for me, getting somebody out of college because they start requiring the college stuff for a lot of trainees, and I'm sitting there like, hey, you finished that report that quick? So no, hold on, let me look at that thing, and I'm like, hey, you can copy and paste, or you can share the screen. I'm sitting there like, okay. Now, for me, a smart FPO would have been like, nah, I can only do it this way. I'm sitting there like, no, show me, because I want to be better. And it made them feel like they're, because, in FTO phase, you want to see them grow. So it gets to a point where day one report, and I always say to end the cycle report, where I go, you sure the report's good? And I look at it. I say, you know what we're looking for, so you good, right? Do I need to look over it? I said, okay, if Sarge sends us back, I never look over your report. I mean, if he sends us back, you gotta look over. But if I don't get that email to, be good, right? That would give them confidence.
Yes.
I don't need to look at your report anymore.
Yeah.
You've done it, and I feel good. Next thing I know, you're backing me up on a traffic stop.
Yep. Isn't that such a cool thing? I love that. I love it. So you spent time being a explosive detection, canine handler.
Yeah.
Oh my God, can I speak? I'm on 3 hours of sleep. Can you tell us about this and like how the training process was?
Yeah, I can tell you it was I was loaned out. Let me put it this way, right? Because I'm still under that. You have to sign that. What is those agreements? The non-disclosure agreement.
Oh, NDA. Yeah.
Right. So mine about to expire, but I can say this: I was given a lab dog. She's my baby, Maggie. They sent me to training in Massachusetts, right, at this facility with some of the best. They were like Massachusetts state troopers and canine and stuff. I had no prior training canine stuffed dog. You talk about one of the most stressful times, right? Because I'm learning how to handle a leash, as you call it. I'm learning how to feed her because I could only feed her when she she a reward dog, right? So I couldn't, you can't bowl feed them, anything like, so you had to learn all this stuff, right? Because you have to plant, you have to plant fake exposures around your house, right? So she can hit them, and that's the reward, the hand feed, right? And to me, I'm doing all this, and I'm like, right? So I really thought I was gonna fail qualification. When it came up to it today, we said everybody sitting around with the dog, and I'm like, right? But I got in the room and I did it, and she hit when all the odors, and I called him out. And when I tell you, I was so happy once I made it, and I was like, ah. So I came back to Northern Virginia. They have facilities in Northern Virginia that let me just say this. They run the world and we don't even know it.
Wow.
So they had been getting a lot of bomb threats, right? That's what we were doing. So we were working in conjunction with local law enforcement there, and we were trained with their canine down in Loudoun County. And when I tell you, you drive past these buildings and you wouldn't know what they were. They just plain buildings, and they have fences around them, security. You know, people drive like, oh, what up? When I found out, I'm like, wow. So I'll just say this. Amazon runs the world.
I'm not surprised.
It's so much more than packages. Trust me. Trust me. It's the scope of it is, the magnitude of it is crazy. It's almost like they have their own little cities. Getting into this facility, I had to be vetted and vetted and vetted, and it was nice. It was fun. It was great experience. And I was like, you know what? I love this, but I want to get back on the street.
Yes.
Because
I totally get that.
it was stressful just going into these locations. You had to go through multiple, and I'm like, here. It was so bad. Even my canine had an ID. She had an ID. She had an ID. But again, the guys I work with, they were incredible. They, most of those were retired and still local authorities from down there in North Virginia. And that was a heck of an experience because I can use that. I got nationally certified. So I still have that training I can fall back on if I wanted to get back into that or whatever. So that was a great experience. But for me, I was like, you know what? I think I want to get back on the street.
I can relate. I feel like I would be the same way.
Yeah, I just want to get back on the street.
What advice would you give to like officers who do want to like get into canine, be a detective, be a sergeant, be an FTO, be a leader? Like, what makes the qualities of a good leader, or like how would you advise them to like move up in the ranks or get into a unit from like your experience?
Well, coming from me, my recommendation would be learn the streets. First and foremost, you have to learn how to deal with people, right? And I ain't talking about your coworkers. You have to learn how to deal with people on the street, because probably about 80% of our problems in policing is dealing with people on the street. Now, some of that we can't help because people are going to be people, as you know. They're going to commit crimes. They're going to fight. They're going to spit. They're going to do all that. They're going to complain, all that. But some of it is we have to learn how to talk to people and when and how to talk to people, because I'm not going to talk to that 70-year-old senior who, happened to hit another car or sidewalk like she's that 22-year-old criminal felon that I just chased down the road.
Right.
And I think we lose that sometimes. So I always tell people, you know, learn the streets, learn your crafts, then you can go and apply, because that's the first thing and I know you've heard this, is people are like, hey, I want to join a department, I want to do that, but I don't want to work the street. And you like, what? Like, no, it doesn't work that way. Well, I just want to be a detective. No, it doesn't work.
Everyone, I want to be a detective. I want to be a detective. You got to learn your neighborhood before you can become a good detective.
The people, and what you don't understand, and again, you know this, most of the homicides at our work, the detectives come to you and go, KD, what you got for us?
100%.
Right? Because they are working streets, or they come from other districts or other departments where they're like, yeah, I do the homicide stuff and the investigations afterwards, but they don't understand we do the initial.
But you're like, I did this case on this guy. I was out with him last week. He usually frequents here. I know he hangs out with this guy. He's got problems with this guy. Like, you could help them piece together everything. The best detectives are the ones that work the road for the longest.
Yep, exactly. And then you'll tell me they on GPS, and they know, you can check if they were on GPS at a certain time and where. And you're like, yeah, I went through his hearing. I did that. So good detectives know that. And that's why I tell the officers, you can be a detective. But I think a lot of people have this myth that it's like Law and Order, where you go out there and you're like, all right, I'm gonna solve this case in 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Done. Fingerprints came back, get them, lock them, like we done. Doesn't work that way. That's a great show. But
I wish it worked that way.
Right? You're not getting fingerprints back in 30 minutes, man. Right?
No.
It doesn't work. You're not sniffing cocaine off the ground and go, yeah, this is pure, man. You're going to jail. Hey, boy, you'll be under so many arrested, so many charges out there. But people have this myth. So I always tell a trainee, like, you can go far. You want to be a supervisor. You want to do this. That's great. But learn that in your general orders, because that's what they're going to get you on if you violate them. There's no gray area. That's what they're going to get you on. That and conduct unbecoming. That's that's the cover line, right? So, but kids, I don't want to say it like this, but I am shit. Younger kids now are different, I think, than we were, and I'm probably a little bit older than you, but they were different. We were different. We had a work ethic, and I'm not saying all kids don't, new age, but we wanted to, advance, and you want to work overtime. We didn't complain about it. It's like now, I work with somebody like, hey, I'm gonna take my cat's birthday off.
Oh my God. Stop it right now.
Yeah, I kid you not.
No, but I know what you're saying. I know. Work ethic is definitely different. 1000%.
Right? So I was like, and you can't say anything, because then it's like, I never worked with anybody that we couldn't say stuff around. And in a context of, we didn't violate anybody's rights just talking or whatever, but we could freely talk. And it was like, now you got, I can't wait. What I gotta call you? I gotta call you. Hey, so like for me, old school cop, I have to be really careful sometimes, because I'm an old school cop, and no harm by it, but we were used to just cutting up on each other.
100%.
Right? Like, the sergeants were in on it, the lieutenants, we had a ball. So now it's like, so I say, listen, learn the craft. If you want to take the test, take the test, but understand, taking a test doesn't make you a good leader. And that is the problem. That's one of the biggest problems we had in policing.
I totally agree. It's not just being a good test taker, it's how you lead. So you are really big on social media. That's how I found you, and yeah. So you share a lot. You share about your life. You've shared about, like, with your trainees and, like, your experiences on the job. You share a lot of, like, police body worn cameras and dash cam videos, like humanizing the badge, and then also, like, showing, like, hey, I didn't agree with this, and, like, this and that, and all things whatever. But you put yourself out there on social media. When did you decide to like put yourself out there, and does it ever worry you to be vulnerable, or have you had more like positive experiences with being open on social media?
That's honest. That's a great question. So I'll say that the chief that I work for now, he was my former district commander, and he was a SWAT commander. He's very comfortable with people knowing what we do.
Yeah.
Because we always had public information officers. And normally most PIOs, you get that brief statement. That's it, right? And people are sitting there like, well, what happened? And I'm not saying you compromise an investigation, but sometimes you have to tell people, hey, listen, these guys were doing this, this, and this, and that's why the officer shot. Not we'll conduct an investigation, it'll be forwarded up to, just the normal stuff. And that's why people have this misconception that everything is, police or we all in, like just we're not going to investigate each other and do it properly. And that's just not the case. It's just for whatever reason, we're afraid to show what we really do out there. So when I went to him, like I said, I did it in DC, and my commander, she loved it. So again, by us working in DC, and he kind of knew. And when we had a talk, and it's funny, he said it down because I just got appointed in charge of their social media site. So I'm going to be launching the departments in a minute in charge of that. Right? So we had a talk, and he says to me, and I love it. He was like, KD, he's like, listen, I trust your judgment. That's all he said to me. I trust your judgment. So I've had one complaint to come to his desk, and you won't believe where that complaint came from. It's another police officer.
Oh, same.
right.
All my complaints have been from coworkers.
Right. And you're sitting there, you're like, well, how did this affect you? And he told me, like, it's God. And I asked him, you want to make a complaint? You want to actually file a complaint or whatever? Like, no, but I just want you to make you aware. But he's like, he's aware. But he's like, well, what is he doing? Right. But he's like, what is he doing to like put police in any negative, view? He couldn't answer it. I swear to God, that was it. Now we get people, and you know this, right? Because I see some of your stuff, right? Mm-hmm. You're the woman. You're no good as a police officer, right? I see your stuff. As a man, I've had, and I'm not just saying this to say it, some of my best officers, best trainees, especially my trainees, have been women. Listen, I don't know what these guys are seeing. Now, there are some women, but there are also men that you can go on YouTube and find men that don't do the job properly. So if I have a female officer who fights with me, who gives me her all, I don't care if she gets tossed around. She fought with me, right? I got your back. You got mine. We going down together. You gonna stay in this fight with me. That's all you want. I forget you're a female officer until guys try to hit on you, right? And I'm like, hey, I'll be right, whatever, right? You know how that works. You're like, all right, we'll handle it. You become one of the guys.
Yep.
That's the best. I think that's the best compliment we can give female officers. Like, you become one of the guys. And I tell women that, girls, they like, you close. I'm like, yes, you're like one of the boys, like whatever. So when I put it out there, I explain to people, hey, listen, this is what really goes on in the police bureau. Not the stuff that you see on TV. It's just not. You don't go out there and shoot four people, and go to the bar and get a drink. It don't work that way, right?
I was just talking about that. I find it so funny that they do that in police shows, the guy like in full uniform having a beer.
Right, we all go to the bar, have a drink. No.
We're shooting in their back at work the next day. Like back on the street.
Right. Shoot somebody. You're gonna be out. You're
That's
out.
True.
Right? But this is what people think, and they think, oh, we just go out there like ready to kill somebody. We'll kill somebody. No, man. I don't want to get in another shooting ever.
Never. No one ever wants to. Never.
It's the worst feeling. It's the worst feeling, and it destroys you. You trust me, it will destroy you if you let it. So I rarely get feedback. Now I do get the negative. You get people. I hate pig. Give you the pig. I hate pigs, and when you're like, okay, bro, whatever.
Yeah.
But most of it's been positive. I want to say probably about 95% overwhelmingly positive in my inbox about, can you help me? How do I apply? What do I expect? I get people that come back and like, hey man, I got hired by this department. And I think that keeps me, driven.
Yep.
And I reach out to police chiefs. In a couple of weeks, I'm going down to Daytona Beach and I'm gonna ride with the chief down there and we doing the podcast from down there. Right.
Amazing. I saw that on your story. Yeah.
Right. Like that man, like that's the stuff. And he's happy to have me. He's like, hey man, I'm like, you too. We had a great conversation. We all say, hey, listen, you come on down, I'm gonna do this. Yeah, I'm happy to have you, man. He's like, follow your page. I'm like, all right, I got a couple of chiefs of police following the page. He's like, yeah, watch this video and this and that. And I'm like, I like it. So that means I'm doing at least something. Somebody, if I can affect one person, and again, not to say police don't do bad things. It's just to say, listen, in this certain situation, this is probably why the officer fired 3 shots or 2 shots, or he emptied, and because you hear this, he emptied his clip. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
He fired 4 shots out of his magazine, right?
Right.
Gun when he reloaded his magazine. So you know how that goes, but
Yes.
I'm not gonna stop because I enjoy it. I have sponsors, paying sponsors, and right now I'm just enjoying it because
I love it.
Yeah, and I love like
think it's
having
great
people like you
because yeah, because like I do similar stuff, and I think that like people like you and I who aren't afraid to cut through the noise, because we are going to get haters by putting ourselves out there, right? But if there's more people like us who ignore the noise, ignore the haters, the more light, the more views that we put on just like us being human, like we've been saying this whole time, like listen, that shit you watch on TV isn't real. Me and you are real. Like, who wouldn't want to hang out with us right now? Like, we're fun. Like,
right.
This stuff is important, and it's not easy to put yourself out there. But like you said, if it helps a couple people get through, like, or even want to become an officer, like it definitely, we're doing our job as like, we're clearly people that want to help others. And that's why we're police officers.
Because we've been through it.
Yeah.
We've been through it. So right. Yeah. So that helped. So that's why I looked at your stuff. You lost a partner, right?
Yes. A former partner. I wasn't working with her when we weren't partners when she got killed. But yeah.
So for me, that and I've lost some co-workers. We've been, how those funerals go. They're the worst thing in the world. What did that do to you?
God, I mean, it's basically shaped and influenced who I am today, and pretty much every move I make every single day, everything I do from that day forward, who I am has changed. Everything. I mean, every move I make. As far as like the trauma from it, I was so involved in like every aspect of when she passed, like trying to do this, do that, be at this event, go to this event, do this for her, be here, like kind of like being like an advocate for her, that I didn't even give myself enough time to grieve her passing. That it like hit me probably like 6 months to 9 months later. Like obviously it hit me and I was like horrified and sad, but I don't think it have like fully, like, because I was so engulfed in just working and like whatever, that it hit me like later, and I was like, okay, I need help. Once I started noticing that every time I got a phone call from someone I wasn't expecting a phone call from, my heart would sink to my ass. And that's when I knew I was like, okay, I have a problem. Because that night I kept getting calls from like people I didn't like talk to on the phone all the time. And I wasn't answering them because I was like getting off work and I was like, I'll call you later. And they were calling me to tell me what happened with Ella. So ever since I even still to this day, if I get a call right now, like from my mom and I'm not expecting it, I'm like sometimes automatically thinking like, what happened? So I ended up getting help on anti-anxiety medication. It's changed my life. But yeah, everything I do is with her in mind. Like, what would Ella do? Every single thing I do.
We suffer in silence, and it's good that, and that's why I asked you, because
Mm-hmm.
I know you went through that, right? And it's like, what? It's almost like the feeling you just, it's like surreal, and
Yes.
then you're like, okay, did I recover? Go to the funeral, you know, it's like, wow, right? And she was probably closer to you than guys were to me that got killed. So I can't imagine that. Like, how do you I say get over it, but you went and got, talked to somebody, of course, I'm sure.
You do this.
Right?
Like, this is how I cope. I talk, I share stories and did this podcast because I wanted to talk to other people who've gone through things or have stories to share because once this happened to her, all I wanted to do was share her story. All I wanted to do, she was like me. She was like, would have been a star, like, so I'm like, I want to share her story because she would have liked it. I promise you. And I just like, I'm like, there's so many other people that have stories to share, so many things to do. So I just channeled everything into like what I can do as far as like advocate for others now. Like what can I do in her honor that's something good?
You did a good job. You did a good job.
Then
Yeah.
of course, you get the backlash too. Like, oh God, I've heard that. I don't even want to say because I don't want to give it light, but I've heard horrific things about, me and about her and whatever. And it's just like, that was my friend. At the end of the day, that was my friend. And I'm sorry, but if anyone loses a friend, I would hope that you would talk about them and remember them or post a photo of you guys together. Doesn't everyone if you lose a friend? I mean, are you kidding me? So, yeah, I loved her and I want to keep her memory alive and that's it. So,
I remember her shooting. I
yeah.
remember. And I just
Never forget. I was working that night, obviously. So I was working when the call came out and crazy enough, she was the first person I texted. Said, "Hey, shooting just happened. Are you good?" Checking in. First and only person I texted. And it ended up being her. Never forget it. Yeah.
wow. Yeah, that's yeah. So you take the hate and work it and swing it back and another.
Got
That's
it.
it. And and that's good.
What
And
else
that's
can we do?
It's gonna
What
come.
else?
It's gonna come. And
What else? We have no other choice, right? I mean, like people like me and you, we have these big personalities. It's like you said, God has this way of paving our lives to where we are. And like, I never was a silent person. I always,
I
you know,
was.
so it's like, this is just now I just want to share everybody's story because everyone has a story to share, like what you're doing too. And that's actually my next question for you. You started a podcast and tell me about that. So you're the social media guy, you're a cop, now you have a podcast, you're doing a million things like me. You're literally like the male version of me. I love it.
Well,
Tell us more
it's
about your
funny.
podcast.
So it started with just me doing a recording. Something occurred. I don't know if it was George Floyd, because I think that's about time I started,
Yeah.
when I was so, because we at police, we look at the whole totality of stuff. And at no point did I ever go, well, the officer was right. But I'm looking at this and I'm like, they probably need to release that whole video, because I'm like, it's something in there that I'm not gonna say looking for to clear this officer, but I'm like, this happened over a fake $10 bill for me, where the lady in the store, whoever that called the police, could have been like, hey, for me, that's my opinion. Hey, George, get out the store. Don't come back. I'm taking this fake money. Don't come back in here. I'm gonna call the police. Again, I'm not blaming her, but it's so many things that went wrong in that scenario. For me, it was like, to me, that could have been prevented. So then I look at the video and it's like, okay, his knees on his neck. And I'm like, well, how did they get from out of the car? Because that's all they were showing at first. Right. So once I got access to the whole thing, I'm like, okay, so you begged this gentleman to get out the car for like 11 minutes. Like, ooh, okay. Do we do that? And I'm like, I begged somebody to get out the car for 11 minutes.
Hey, like, how,
You know what I'm saying? I'm not making light of his death. Let me make sure.
No, absolutely not.
But just the circumstances were, how could this have been handled differently? So what it did for me, it lit a spark into my first shooting back. Like, it lit that spark again.
Right.
Where I was told, basically, I shot this teenager while he was on his knees with his hands up praying to God. Like, that was what one of the witnesses said as she looked out the window. Another witnesses, his hand was up. He was on his knees. Well, I'm sitting here like, no, I was the one that shot this guy. I know what happened. But we can't say anything.
Right.
We can't say nothing. We sit there like, oh, don't watch the news. Well, I can't help it because I'm sitting there. You got my face blasted off for the media. And it's like, and it's funny because they only did it to show the city that I wasn't a white officer. I'll tell you how crazy that was. That's to show the city that I wasn't a white officer. Because my name, get this, my name sounded white.
Oh my gosh. So all these circumstances, and you're like thinking in your mind, you're like, how can I share like every side of the story?
And that's what involved me. And I kid you not, I was like, I'm gonna do this. And I got a mic, I got on Spotify, because I started with Spotify. I was like, nobody's gonna listen to this, nobody's gonna do whatever. But I started talking and it came out and it was natural. Yeah. And next thing you know, I got people like, hey man, I listened to your podcast. I'm like, you listen to that? It's like, yeah, man, I like it. Next thing you know, I'm getting bigger. I'm getting bigger equipment and this and that. And then I realized, I'm like, I don't even need all that. I just need to tell basic stories about what goes on and how normal people would react, police officers will react, and how things really go behind the scene. So I've covered the Sonia Massey shooting, cover relationships in policing, internal affairs, how internal affairs really work. People are like, oh, internal affairs are friends. I'm like, no, they are not our friends. Right? Please don't get into it.
I love that you share everything though, because you're totally not like, you're not always like the cops are always right. You really you are like, this is this side and this is this side. This is how these people might view this. This is how these people might view this. This is how I would view it, or maybe how I would have done it. Like, you aren't biased, even though you're a police officer.
Right.
Which is probably why people love to listen to you.
And I've heard that. And even guys that were like, well, I ain't mess with the police. But I listen, I like, I appreciate it. Like, yeah, you were right. So, because like I said, we never get that other side of what happens out there. And I know the investigation is, we can't compromise investigation. You hear that BS. But then there are cities where the mayors will go, yo, release that body cam real quick because we don't want to riot. Well, you just compromised the goddamn investigation.
Right.
So what's the difference, right? So for me, that the podcast is just a way of telling people, listen, I've been here.
Right.
It doesn't work like that. When I sat in homicide them times, man, just like I got the light, I got a detective here, I got my lawyer here, and I'm sitting there like, whoo. And they answer me questions from, so did you have all your, did you have, how many bullets did you have? Right? You're there like, oh God, I knew I had a full magazine. Oh,
right.
And listen, and well, what does this have to? And only do you learn afterwards. They're putting this whole puzzle together for a grand jury or the
Right.
state's attorney to clear you or not clear you, or for your ass to get indicted. So when I went, I testified before a grand jury. I didn't have to, but I was like, listen, I'm telling, this is what happened, and they cleared me 23-1, and it was like
Wow.
one white chick in there from my first one that was like, well, you shot him for $8, and everybody turned on her. They went off on her. They cleared me, no problem. But then I still got civilly sued. And I'm like, what? Why? What? Then I learned that's part of politics. I ain't do nothing wrong, but they sued, wrongful death.
Right.
Wait, the friend or something. I know, but we're gonna go ahead and give them $80,000. For what? Right? So you learn that side of it. People don't know that side of it. They just think that.
And officers don't know either. Like if we haven't been through it, we don't know either. And so it's
Yep.
good that, because people don't want to speak about, like, obviously traumatic situations that they've been in all the time. But the fact that you're speaking up about it and letting advice, someone could feel more comfortable if, God forbid, they go through something similar.
And they do. They do. And that's
They
part of
could,
it.
reach out to you like, hey, what is your advice for me here? Like, I have this meeting.
Yeah.
What kind of lawyer? What should I look for in a lawyer? Like, God, I wouldn't know the first thing.
Yeah, and it's funny you said that, because I get that. I get guys that are like, bro, I'm stressed out. Where I go? What do I do? I got into a shooting. The last shooting in DC prior to today, one of the officers who follows me, he reached out and he was like, listen, you're gonna see my shooting on the news. We shot this guy in the McDonald's drive-through. He reached for a gun. What do you think? I talked to him for like 3 hours.
That's amazing.
I've been there, right?
Yeah.
He felt better. He's like, I said, you're gonna get through it. You'll be fine. I know it sounds like just noise right now. I said, but I take it from somebody who's been there in that seat. This is the process that's gonna happen, and it made them feel like, oh, okay. So they not saying no, don't take it personally, because you can't. Because that's the problem, right? You did your job. This man had a gun. He raised it up. What were you supposed to do? Right?
Right.
Because they would ask me, like, what was I supposed to do? Die? And then he's doing like oh yeah, technically. No, if I have to die in the line of duty, it's not going to be me sitting there like, well, I'm just put down everything, the gun, the mace, everything, the baton. Go ahead, man. Go ahead. Do it. Right? I'm fighting to my last breath, right? Because
absolutely,
I'm going out here just to die, sacrifice my life.
Mm-hmm.
If I have to in the line of duty, I made peace with that, right? But not just to satisfy somebody who don't give a damn about me anyway. You know what I mean? No, I'm gonna do my job, and if I have to fight you, I have to fight you. So what you said is funny, because I can say a lot of guys, but I've had plenty of guys hit me up, and women in the inbox are like, I got into a shooting. My boyfriend got into a shooting. What do we do? How does this happen? What's the process? So that was the whole basis of the podcast. And it grew. And I think
I can't think of one person that I would like, that anyone like generally would be able to feel comfortable going to talk to if that happened. So I think it's amazing that you do that, because, like we said earlier, like we're not running away like, woohoo, you're petrified. Like you don't ever want to do that. None of us ever want to get into that. And for you to make it a safe space, but also be honest, like this is this side, this is this side. Like, I think it's so important. I think what you're doing is so helpful. Like, and for you to be vulnerable, to share like what you've been through in the first place.
Oh yeah. Like I said, that's probably 70% of it, but I'm not gonna keep you forever with it. But I just safe to say, I could probably write a book.
I'm surprised you haven't, to be honest.
I've been working, and it's funny, I'm thinking of it, but it's like, man, right? Will people even believe these chapters? Because I say crazy, crazy. I shared this on the podcast. One of them, I lost my daughter's mom to my best friend, who was my partner when I got into my first shooting because he was late to work. That's how I got into the shooting because I went to the call by myself because there's a robbery in progress. So I'm going to back somebody else up. We're supposed to be together. He's late for work. I get to the shooting, fast forward, he winds up, they're now married. They're now married, right? They're now married.
My God.
Right? I didn't know. Man, I'm the last one. Ain't that funny? They're now married, man.
I'm invested in this chapter.
Right? I found out. It's funny. We went through the academy together. We went through DC Police Academy together. Never knew. Then I found out. It was like,
It's crazy.
wait, y'all, man. So I had to pretend in the academy every day not to hate this dude, not to fight this dude. And we had to go through the motions of going through the whole academy, knowing I wanted to strangle him in the academy and that whole 9 yards. So I was like, I have no problem with that. That would be chapter like 2. You were like,
just to kick it off. Keep reading. There's more.
Right? But we cool. We are cool.
Yeah.
We cool. Like their lives. You know, my daughter's at Penn State doing her thing.
Amazing.
Her, right? She's graduating next year. They're in, one part of Maryland doing their thing. I see them. I'm respectful. And I just look back at it as this was another test from the man upstairs.
Right.
Because I wanted to do some vile and nasty stuff, and I would have lost everything. And now I look at the bigger picture. I'm like, man, I probably have been in jail for life, and I would have never seen my daughter, all that. And yeah. So now I'm out here doing something better.
So I mean, you've done so much in your life, your career, you're a dad, you're an officer, you're an advocate, you got a podcast. You might write a book. How do you balance everything, and what advice do you have for people who are officers but want to do other things outside of work? And like, how do you balance everything you have going on? How do you stay positive? How do you balance it?
Mental health day. I learned that from one of my lieutenants. Got to have a mental health day. People used to laugh at that. And he used to say it. A mental health day. He's like, you'll know. And what I learned was doing, like, my schedule now is 3 on, 3 off. So when I have my weekend off, which is coming up now, my Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, because we can work part-time, extra money here and there if you want it. Sometimes I go, I'm gonna pretend I'm just an unemployed black man. I said like that, right? That's funny. I'm an unemployed black man. I'll fill up the fridge with my favorite foods, whatever, fruit, whatever. I'll get on my PS5 off and on, and I do absolutely nothing.
Good.
For a whole day or two. Where roll over, sleep, turn on the TV, look at sports, whatever. And minimum contact with the phone, nothing. And you have to have that outlook where you're like, you got to make time for yourself in this job, in this profession. Because if not, you will burn out. Because I was burned out. And the only way I got I refreshed and recharged my batteries was, again, to retire, to leave one department. And I didn't want to go to another one and be in that same mindset of, oh my God, I don't want to go to work. When you don't want to go to work, it's over. It's over. When you're looking for ways to take off, or wait, how many leave days I got?
Oh God, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
You're not in good space. So that's my advice to everybody, especially the young officers. Like, I know you guys like to do the hookah bars or the clubs and all that. It may not mean much now. The world is different. But I'm like, you got a family. If you got family, hang with that family. Go on a trip. Or don't do anything. But get away from that job mindset, right? When you're in a restaurant. Because we all do it. You're like, all right, back to the wall. I still do that. But sometimes you just gotta be like, hey, I'm here, I'm having a good time, and you just gotta turn it off. You have to turn it off. So that's my advice to, especially the young officers and people that want to do stuff. Balance. It's all about that balance, man.
Yeah.
It's
And it's hard. It's not easy. And I don't think you could ever really master it. But I totally think like, just like, honestly, well, this is, some people love going to work out and whatever. I like what you do. I like just like in bed and being mindless. I like being mindless for a little bit. You know, I have to turn off for a little bit. So if someone visits your page, let's say someone's listening to my podcast and not following you yet, and they listen to this, they send you a follow. What do you want their takeaway to be when they go and visit your page?
wow. I thought I knew about what police work was, and it's really not. That's the takeaway. That is really the takeaway. And like, yeah, these guys are human. You know, because again, I have some stuff on there that I remember one girl, she was like, one girl, like, she was like, oh my God, it's traumatic. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I'm like,
No shit.
right? She's like, and she took, and because it's funny, I taught a class in Virginia back in, I thought, what Loyola Murray, whatever school was in Virginia. I taught a couple classes and I took the bomb. It's funny, I took the bomb dog down there and taught a couple classes. And I remember her telling the class they could follow me, but her opening statement was, his page is traumatic, so be prepared. To me, I'm like, I mean, yeah, but we used to that. And it shows so many people just don't have a real clue about what evil and nastiness is out there in that world. You know what I mean? So that's if anything, you go on my page and you look and you see and you go down and you look at the videos and you're like, wow, well, they didn't have to shoot him 5 times. And then hopefully you read some of the stuff we wrote or read some of the explanation. Like, oh, okay, well, yeah, well, maybe they did. If you have an open mind to it, the page should explain a lot of what we do and why we do it. That's my biggest thing.
That's so interesting you say that because I'm an officer, I never looked at your page and thought, wow, this is traumatic. But like to hear it from someone who's not an officer, to them, it looks like it is traumatic, like all the actual realities of this job and all the videos that you post. It's actually really interesting that you said that. And that's really cool to hear that, like, not cool to hear, but you know, so for them to see the other side of it, like what we actually see and do from like literally our GoPro, you know?
Yeah.
Wow.
Exactly.
Wow.
So that's huge for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you really want to do this? And I'm gonna tell you, you're gonna get in a shooting. But what I'm saying is, you have to be prepared when you go on any call. Like I said, 3 former colleagues today shot. Luckily, they're gonna make it.
Thank
Right?
God.
But how many times did we get a call for an armed person and we're like, okay, we get them calls all the time.
Literally last night, I was like, well,
Right? Armed
yeah,
person.
it's not good. It's not good. We always have to be alert, but we become so numb to this job, and we become so mundane with a lot of things here and there. Sometimes we got to check ourselves, you know, remind ourselves, like today, like 3 officers got shot, and
That was a
you're
good
like,
check. 3.
yeah, 3. And I think it was like in a lobby or something, right? Like
Lobby of a new apartment, like a really nice area of.
you wouldn't think walking into a lobby you're gonna get shot in an apartment. Yeah.
They got ambushed.
Yeah.
They got ambushed, right? So I tell everybody, like, this stuff happens. And again, that's close to home. They were my former colleagues. And I had a phone was going off, had to make sure check and, you know.
Yes, of course.
But I put it out there because it's like, guys, this is what we do. So you can't be, and I know we get like that, but you get these calls and, you know, we get into, it's just a regular armed person. No, bro. No, you never know what's on the other side of that door.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
So for my listeners, what's like a good piece, like a final takeaway that you would have for anyone listening?
Well, if you want to do the job, do your research on the departments you might be interested in. Do your research. Do a ride along. I highly recommend a ride along.
I wish I could have done that. I never did a ride along.
I highly recommend a ride along on the first of the month on a Friday, right? That's what I, you know,
Yeah.
right? So that, and also do not believe everything that the media puts out there. I have several friends in the media and they hit me up all the time. They inbox me like, Katie, what do you think about this? And I'm like, you better not. And we trust each other. So I don't put them on blast. They don't put me on blast. But I'm like, that's not right. Don't do that. Like, okay. So they have program directors.
Yeah.
And most of their program directors are like 25 years old, straight out of college. And I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with that, but a lot of them haven't tasted the world. They straight from college to a news station, and all they see is we got to get this out. Oh, that's going to run. That's going to give us, high views and things like that.
Clickbait.
Right?
Real stuff like, hey, this and this happened and this is why. That's not going to get you clicks and follows and likes. You got to put the worst tagline on there, the worst photo.
Right. You hit it. So that's what I want people to pay attention, do your research on the media and what they put out there. And don't always just fall for that and go unarmed, because I hate unarmed man. Well, it's not unarmed black. You can't say unarmed black man on this one. So then you say man shot by police. Well, wait a minute. When are you going to put in there that they had an 8-inch knife or they were armed with a weapon? Why do we stop? What's that? Because if I do that, then people are gonna be like, oh, yeah, they just shot a dude. You know what I mean? It's not going to give you that same sensationalism of unarmed black man or unarmed Hispanic male or unarmed this. Yeah, I can do that. So I'm huge on that because of my prior experiences. So that's what I love people to, man, at least I looked at 3 or 4 of his videos. So now I understand why it's 3 cops behind that one car on a traffic stop. Well, because he has a warrant and we see it. He's violent. You can't see that. We looking at the computer. So it's not gang it up on the one guy, right? There's 3 of us who know this dude, knows he fights, knows he smoked PCP, knows he's violent, and we're sitting here and we're going to wait till we get enough officers so we don't have to go out there and be on news.
Yep.
That's probably the way.
I love it. I appreciate you being here and talking with me. I feel like we definitely need to do a part 2, just talking about mental health or whatever, just a topic and just shoot the shit. But where can my listeners find you? What's your at? I mean, I said it already, but if you want to give your at.
Let's Talk Law Enforcement, period. And I'm not changing that. They're like, change your name because I'm like, no, it's trademark. It's a business name. I'm not changing it. I love it. Right. So Let's Talk Law Enforcement, period. Now, I did do a TikTok page, which is different. We don't do any dancing or anything. It's more of just interacting on while, again, we talk about why we do certain things or whatever. But I don't know after the 19th, is TikTok gone or not, but it's the same thing. Let's Talk Law Enforcement on TikTok. And that's it. But again, the podcast is on all major platforms, Amazon, Spotify, Odyssey. What's up? Amazon, Odyssey, Apple. There you go. And on Apple. Thank you. Cricket. So give it a listen and then, give me some feedback. We don't always have to agree, but at least let's talk about it. And then I think it'll be much better.
Yeah, definitely. You guys go give him a follow and check out his podcast. I love it. I love everything that you do. I love all the open doors that you have to all sides. And I love how you're vocal and unapologetically you. Stay that way. I love it. We need more people like you. But thank you so much for being here, and thank you for sharing everything with us today.
Thank you. Come back soon, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
All right.